Where's the tie?
I forgot how to tie one. It's been so long.
And pants, board shorts don't
I do
count.
have pants on. I do have pants on.
Okay.
Thank goodness. I need to get some art or something. It looks like I'm in prison. The white walls behind me.
I have too much stuff behind me.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jacob Kaza. I'm a senior planner with the City of Westminster's Planning Division. Tonight, hosting a neighborhood meeting are Eric Shekel and Mike DeGrant, talking about the Foster Farm property development and the PDP amendment that they're currently processing through the city. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to them, and they'll go ahead and start their presentation. And then after their presentation, the city will have a presentation. Our format for the meeting tonight, coming up on the screen here, just a welcome and agenda overview, an understanding of the question and comment format. And then, as I said, the applicant's presentation, the project planner presentation, and then we'll open up for questions and comments, and then post some contact information and helpful links at the end there. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Mike and Eric. Oh, sorry, right before I do that, before we go into that, we'll go ahead and just go over the question and comment format. Using this GoToWebinar software platform, you have the ability to ask questions into the chat on the right-hand side of the window, and we will read those questions out loud and then answer them. The applicant team will answer them, or city staff will answer them, depending on the type of the question that it is. And if we have time available, we'll allow people to do live speaking. So with that, we'll go ahead and start the applicant presentation.
Jacob, thank you very much for hosting tonight. My name is Mike DeGrant, Senior Vice President of Shuck Chapman Companies. We appreciate your time tonight in joining us to learn more about our company and the Foster Farm community that we're currently working with the city on in the PDP process. So our team has developed real estate along the Front Range for over 50 years, and we're excited to be part of Westminster and part of your community. So my colleague, Eric Shekel, Vice President of Development, and I are here tonight to share our company's vision of the Foster Farm community. Understand that we're very early in on the process and starting with an amendment to the current PDP, or preliminary development plan as it's phrased. And then we will follow that with ODPs, or overall development plans, as we go through the project on an individual site-by-site basis. So Foster Farm, providing local connections and opportunities. Our project team, we can go to the next slide. So our project team is more extensive than what you see before you here. The team includes civil engineers, land planners, landscape architects, traffic engineers, and many other experts helping us to plan and develop the 85 acres of the Foster Farm community. Next slide. The vicinity map shows our 85 acres outlined in red, and a number of bullet points within the red area that relate back to slides 1 through 6, or pictures 1 through 6, showing various angles of the. We are between Huron Street along our west boundary, I-25 along the east boundary, Orchard Parkway cutting right through the middle of the project down by the Lowe's project, and 136th Avenue to our south. And we are adjacent to additional land that is owned by others that's adjacent to 141st Avenue along the north side of the project. Okay, next slide. So based on market conditions, our plan would be to develop this community in phases over the next 5 to 10 years. Next slide, please. The community character and vision board gives examples of our architectural elements, trails, and open space, providing easy pedestrian and bike access throughout the community. So this just gives you ideas of architectural elements that we will have in our overall design guidelines for each and every building or parcel that's developed within the community. Next slide, please. This is a continuation of some of those visions. We will be relocating part of the Bull Canal that is along the west side of the project. You can see kind of in the center of this vision board, there's a channel with water in it that has grass side slopes, more natural look than the concrete channel that's there today, cleaning up some of the dead trees, developing around and saving as many of the cottonwood trees as we can based on a tree study that's been performed. Then you can see some of the bike trails and pedestrian areas, outdoor sitting areas, eating establishments. Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to turn this over to Eric to provide additional overview of the current PDP that we're working on with city staff, and we will be available for questions following the presentation. Eric?
Thank you, Mike. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that Mike touched on there. I want to talk specifically about the different planning areas that we're proposing. Basically, I want to get into the land uses that we're proposing within our PDP, which are consistent with the 2013 comprehensive plan. And then I'll also talk a little bit about infrastructure and utilities. So what you're seeing here on this plan, it shows phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. We also call those planning areas, and those will be represented in more detail in the PDP amendment. So phase 1, which is at the northeast corner of Huron and 136th Avenue, that's about 21 acres. And we're proposing, again, in concert with the comprehensive plan, for that to be a retail commercial use. So per the PDP amendment proposal, as well as the comprehensive plan. So that's your typical retail center, allowing for grocery, restaurants, different dry store goods, services such as nail salons and dry cleaners and things of that nature. Phase 2, 3, and 4, or planning areas 2, 3, and 4, the proposed use there is the same for all three of those. And what that planning area is called, it's called Office and Research and Development. And what that allows for is just what it's called, is office uses. And then also for offices associated with research and development. So what we foresee happening on these 3 parcels or 3 planning areas, which is made up of about 64 acres to add up to the total of the 85 acres that Mike mentioned. Phase 2 is about 28 acres. Phase 3, about 27 acres. And then phase 4 is about 8 acres. And so what we foresee in these planning areas are really uses that are in concert with or satellites or accessory uses to the St. Anthony's Hospital up to the north. So that's a perfect example of what could be going in here. Are things such as medical office buildings, maybe dentist office, dermatology offices, other types of office buildings, all with the goal, the city's goal of having a good employee base, and that employee base will be able to utilize all the commercial and other uses that are up along 144th Avenue. So the main advantage of that is Orchard Parkway that the city has already constructed the bulk of. And we'll be able to utilize Orchard Parkway for all these businesses to be able to get up to 144th, as well as down to our phase 1, our planning area 1, to be able to utilize the commercial and retail within those different areas that are already built or are to be or planned to be built. So other uses within there that we could foresee is maybe there's a LabCorp that benefits from the St. Anthony's Hospital to the north. Also, we could foresee some skilled nursing type facilities within one of these planning areas 2, 3, or 4. Also, what we are talking about internally and are including in our PDP amendment is a use possibly of doing a hotel within. We're focused more on planning area 3 because of the visibility from I-25. So we could foresee there being a hotel right in the middle of that phase 3 area. As far as infrastructure goes, as mentioned, and as I'm sure you've seen, is Orchard Parkway. The bulk of Orchard Parkway is already constructed, but yet there's several other road improvements that need to be performed here to make this development viable. One of them is 138th Avenue, which you can see between phase 1 and phase 2. So that'll be a collector status road. We'll be adding a traffic signal both at Huron and 138th, as well as a traffic signal at Orchard Parkway and 138th. And that 138th ties right in with the northern edge of the Lowe's parcel and the retail there. So there'll now be a signalized intersection at that point to be able to handle the traffic not only from our proposed development, but also that's coming out of the Lowe's development. On this plan, you see several gray arrows. All the individual arrows that you see, like along 136th into phase 1, at Huron Street and into phase 1. Those are proposed as right-in, right-outs, as well as into phase 2 there along Huron. There are a couple other, or there's one other full movement access shown on this plan, and that's between phase 2 and phase 4. And then there's another right-in, right-out that we're proposing into phase 3. So our focus here and our goal is to bring all the external traffic, in off of Huron and 136th Avenue, and really centralize that traffic into that main spine road, again, Orchard Parkway, which connects 136th all the way up to 144th. So as to try to keep that traffic off of the surrounding arterials. We're also planning to want to make sure that we have good bus connectivity to the surrounding areas. So we're planning a bus stop on Huron Street. Exactly where that's going to be located, we haven't determined yet, but that'll all get worked out during this PDP process. Internal to the property, you see labeled there on phase 3 between 3 and 4 is the Bull Canal. That's a Farmers Reservoir and Irrigation Company irrigation ditch that will be realigning within phase 1 as well as phase 2. Currently that cuts through the middle of phase 1, and we'll be pushing that over to Orchard Parkway. It'll parallel Orchard Parkway along the west side, and then it'll stay pretty much in it's planned to stay in its same location northeast of Orchard Parkway there between phases 3 and 4. One of the beauties of that canal that we're intending on doing is making sure that we're not only have the nice, hopefully it'll be a nice looking water feature through the property, but also we'll be putting a soft trail along that canal so that people can use that for biking, hiking, and running. There's also a lot of other trails that you see on this plan. If you can tell, there's the purple and blue proposed trails that are the dashed lines. And then there's existing trails and widened sidewalks that already exist in back of Lowe's, adjacent the existing regional detention facility on our eastern side, as well as up and down Huron and then along Orchard Parkway. So one of our focuses is to make sure we have good pedestrian and bike connectivity to everything else that's going around in the city of Westminster here. Also within these different phases, we're also going to make sure that we have good small community spaces. There'll be some art features, small pocket parks, places to sit, benches, picnic tables, everything for people that are working within the facilities or within the community, but also for people to come in from the outside, utilize the trail system, have a place to sit, have a place to have lunch or have a picnic. Then just real quick, I just want to touch on utilities. There are utilities that surround the property, water and sewer, but there's still a lot of utilities that we'll need to build with this development, and most of those will be within the proposed street network. There are certain improvements that'll just be obviously throughout the different phases or planning areas, but a lot of it will also be within the road. So everything within this development is self-contained. We don't expect there to be much off-site utility improvements because the city of Westminster has done a really good job of sizing those utilities for this proposed development, because it is part of the comprehensive plan that they've been working on for several years. So they've sized the off-site utilities to be able to accommodate a development of this nature. So then just to finish up my piece here, if you could turn to the next slide, if you don't mind. So this is one of the pages from the PDP that we submitted to the city. It shows pretty much what you just saw on the last slide. There's a little more detail to it when it comes to utilities and things. And so where we're at right now is we did get some comments from the city on the PDP. And so we're working on a resubmittal document that'll be going in the next couple of weeks that will show in more detail what was discussed tonight and what our engineers are uncovering as they do more investigation into this property. And then, as Mike had mentioned, once we go through the PDP process, then each planning area that we mentioned and that you could see here, planning areas 1, 2, and 3. Then we're splitting planning area 3 into a fourth planning area. Those will also go into an official development plan process. And I believe Jacob's going to talk a little bit more about the schedule and the process, the full city process that we'll be going through over the next several months. So that finishes me up, Jacob.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric and Mike. So with that, we'll go ahead and go through the presentation from the city staff. So as I said before, my name is Jacob Kaza. I'm a senior planner with the City of Westminster's Planning Division. Up now on the screen is an overview of the city's development review process at a very kind of high level diagram with just some bubbles to kind of illustrate how the process flows and where this development is currently in the process. So the Foster Farm development, currently it's a preliminary development plan application. There is already a preliminary development plan that was approved by City Council in 2099 or so. That already entitled the property for development. However, it doesn't have the same amount of uses that align with the city's 2013 comprehensive plan. And it's could use an update to reflect some of our new standards, such as showing access points and clarifying other issues. So the city staff have conducted their first review of that. And then after the first review, the next step is to host either a neighborhood meeting or do a development mailer for projects that typically will be required to go to a public hearing, which this preliminary development plan will be required to go to a public hearing. We do a neighborhood meeting. So this neighborhood meeting held tonight will satisfy that requirement of the city staff. After the applicant will take any feedback we get from this neighborhood meeting and anything we get through letters, emails, or phone calls from the public, and they'll revise their plans and incorporate any of those as applicable. Then city staff will continue the review process until the document and all the studies have been accepted and are ready for review and consideration by the Planning Commission and then City Council. Ultimately, as I said before, this PDP amendment, the Preliminary Development Plan amendment, will require City Council's consideration, and they will be the decision maker on whether that PDP amendment would get approved. After the PDP amendment is approved, or before, the applicant can apply for their official development plan application. The 3 or 4 planning areas that they showed do not have any official development plans currently in place. Before they could start any construction or process construction documents with the city, they would need to go through that whole official development plan process. So that has very much the same review track as the PDP does. It would go through staff review. We would require the applicant to hold another neighborhood meeting on that, and then again, additional staff reviews, and then finally a review and consideration by the Planning Commission. It's required that the official development plan be reviewed at a public hearing based off of the size threshold of the size of this property being over 10 acres. Then if the official development plan is approved and any subsequent amendments or amendments necessary were approved by the Planning Commission, they could go process their civil construction drawings and their building permits, so they could start work on the necessary utilities inside their development and the buildings that they would like to construct. The city has standards for the approval of amendments to preliminary development plans. Going over some of them, so first, it must be in conformance with the the city's comprehensive plan needs to have sound planning principles. Any exceptions from code requirements need to be identified and then warranted as to why the exception should be approved by City Council. It has to be compatible or have some compatibility with existing surrounding development. It can't create adverse impacts. And it has to have safe and efficient design of the transportation infrastructure. And then it needs to include some standards on the framework for how future ODPs would be reviewed and considered. So some of those things could be setbacks, or specifically perimeter setbacks from adjoining uses. It could be height restrictions. And oftentimes we'll see the inclusion of things like architectural requirements. So earlier the applicant showed concepts for their architecture that they envisioned on the site. And so some of those items will be incorporated on the PDP as well. And that's the end of the staff presentation. So we can go ahead and transition into the question and comment portion. John, do we have any comments or questions?
There are currently no questions in the question or in comment box.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and leave it for a minute or two and see if anybody has just needs a moment to think about that. And again, on screen, you'll see the way to comment there is kind of illustrated in that picture, that screen grab.
All right, seeing no questions.
Okay. Well, if there's no questions, then we'll go ahead and skip through that portion and go ahead and close the meeting out. So before we close the meeting out, I'd just like to share contact information for the applicant and for myself. Again, I'm the project planner, so the lead review on the city's team for this preliminary development plan application or amendment application. That's my phone number, direct phone number to my office. And that is my email address. So if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to send them to me. We do record all of our neighborhood meetings and they go up on YouTube. And we are live streaming right now on YouTube as well. So this will be posted on YouTube and will be available for viewing by anyone in the public at their leisure. And then we also write up a short project overview or kind of a short status update of where these projects are, and that does get updated generally as the project goes through the development review process with information about dates for public hearings and such. So that's the link to the city's development status webpage, which contains pages or overviews of a bunch of different projects throughout the city, and this is one of the projects that's listed on there. So with that, and seeing as we didn't have any comments or questions, we can go ahead and close it out. So thank you, Eric and Mike, for holding this meeting tonight.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Look forward to working with you, moving this project forward.
Thank you. Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Bye.